Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today I have David Shaw on the show, and we're going to talk about what it's like living with a mental health diagnosis and also living in recovery from a mental health diagnosis. Get you something to drink, get you a snack, and come on back. My energy level is so low. Man, so how you doing overall though? I know you just said you're starting school. How is that going for you?
Good. I guess I was kind of anxious at first, just because took so much time off, like doing other stuff. I was just worried that if I was gonna be able to get back into that mindset. But
Yeah.
I found that like as soon as the first day was over, I was like, yeah, like I like this. This is what I want to do right now. So
That's awesome. How
yeah,
many classes are you taking?
I'm taking 5 classes.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm taking
wow.
just like a couple of general ed classes and then a fire safety class and the EMT course. I'm trying to get into the fire academy.
Oh, nice.
And that doesn't even take a degree. All I have to do is finish the fire class and the EMT, and then I can apply to the fire academy. But I figured I might as well just try to get a degree while I'm at it.
Oh, wow, that's smart. I know somebody who is actually in that field. I think he started off with, I want to say he went to ARC. It could be Sierra, but
Yeah.
he started off taking courses, and then he had to do the EMT stuff. I remember him having to like go up to like certain hospitals and
Mm-hmm.
pick patients up, and then eventually he graduated on to being a firefighter. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, like you can do it in like 2 or 3 years. It won't even take that long. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's like at the same time, it's like it's not a race, and I'm trying to get like all the qualifications and certifications I can beforehand because then, like, I'll be able to be paid more, like starting out. The more you
Yeah.
know, the more you get paid. So,
Nice.
um, yeah.
That's yeah. So what made you want to go into that particular field?
Um, I mean, I've always wanted to like help people, and like I personally have my life saved by like the EMTs and the fire department, like
Yeah.
a couple times. But I didn't want to be a cop, like, but I think this was like I don't know, I just like it was between like paramedic or firefighter, and I don't know, I just firefighting sound cool, like the camaraderie of like
Yeah.
living in the station, like with all your brothers and sisters or whatever, and like because you like live there for like like 24 hours on like each shift, and it just
Yeah.
seems like really cool and like really like I just want to be able to like have that like family at work kind of.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, we've kind of started a little bit of the introduction. Why don't you just kind of we kind of going a little bit backwards, but just introduce yourself and then we'll jump into it from there.
So yeah, my name's David Shaw. I'm 31 years old, California native. Been struggling with mental health and addiction issues for the majority of my life. Yeah, and I don't know, it just when I was a kid, I thought it was normal just to feel like you don't fit in. I don't
Yeah.
know, like it just like, and then it just spiraled into all this other stuff. So like, I don't know. I thought maybe like sharing my story would help some people feel like they're not so alone, because that's what it is. It's like you just feel like nobody gets you.
Yeah. So when did you first, to your knowledge, when did you feel you first start experiencing mental health like challenges or differences?
Well, like I said, it started early, but I didn't know like that's what it was. Like thinking back now in hindsight, I can identify like kind of when it started when I was like maybe in like the second grade, and I just felt like, well, I didn't feel like I didn't have any friends for sure. I had
Yeah,
like one friend, and
yeah,
he was like younger than me. Like I couldn't make friends my own age. Just really shy, and
yeah,
that gave birth to like a lot of, I guess, like crippling anxiety. I
yeah,
had found it really hard to be like in social situations. Like I couldn't put myself out there. Like I couldn't be in a room of people, and if I was, like I felt like super alone.
yeah.
And that's my first like remembrance of, like, I guess how like the first issues that started.
So, what was some more symptoms of, um, as you start to get older? How did your symptoms graduate or start to increase for anxiety?
Well, for anxiety, it kind of like commingled with depression when I turned about like 12. And
Okay.
then like the main thing that would manifest was I would isolate a lot. I would just be um like I hated going to school. Like I would show up like right when the bell started. That way I didn't have to like stand around and like be awkward because I had no friends. So I'd show up like right at 8:30 when the bell was ringing. Sometimes a few minutes afterwards, because I mean that was even better actually. And I just walk in. I don't have any interaction with people. Um, and then like after I get out of school, I would just like walk or bike straight home. And then at that point, like I I kind of like got, well, I just spent a lot of time on the internet, I guess, just like reading and
Yeah.
like playing like dumb games, like just like anything to like distract myself, really. Like
Yeah.
and like I didn't like, and I was lost. Like I didn't, like I felt like I didn't belong. So like at the same time, I felt like I had no direction. So like
Yeah.
it was even hard to focus on my schoolwork because I didn't know like what I wanted to do, and it like just felt pointless. Even though like like I never thought of myself as like stupid or anything. Like I always actually got good grades, but like I just it was just like hard to think about like the bigger picture because I I was just dealing with all these issues internally,
Yeah.
and like I didn't know who to talk to about it. I just like kept that stuff in for really forever, and until like maybe my 20s I started even talking about it with my parents and like doctors and stuff.
Also, your parents didn't know.
No, they didn't. Like they just thought I was like shy and quiet. My dad was like a professor at UC Davis, and like, or he is a professor at UC Davis, so he's always like super busy,
Yeah.
working all the time. Like he brings his work home a lot, and just like he's a teacher at a college. He just works a lot, and so like my mom at that time was like she immigrated here from China, so she was working on like getting her real estate license. She was going to school at the same time. She was just like really busy doing a bunch of different things. So like it's not like I know my parents love me,
Yeah.
but they just like it was just hard to communicate with that with them because they were so busy with their own stuff.
Yeah. You know, so we're gonna flip a little bit. I want to talk. You talked about a little bit about depression too. So I'm just gonna give the very simple definition of depression. I mean, there's different levels and the different level of anxiety and stuff, but for the sake of the audience that have been watching it, it says depression is a feeling of sadness that impede your ability to enjoy your life. Signs of depression is trouble concentrating, feelings of hopelessness, fatigue, feeling a sudden dip in esteem, and trouble eating or sleeping. And when I was doing like my research, and I was reading the symptoms and the definition of depression. It really brought me back to someone that was extremely close to me. This individual, would always tell me he is battling a down feeling. And that's the terminology he used. I'm battling a down feeling. And we had been friends for many years, and I did not realize this boy was dealing with depression until I'm gonna say at least about 6 or 7 years into our friendship. Like, just all those years went by, and he was battling a down feeling, and it never occurred to me. I mean, and we would be just out or eating movies or just, you know, watching TV or whatever, and we'll be laughing, joking, and then boom, it'll be a switch in energy. And at first, I didn't really understand what was going on because my natural personality, I'm a jokester. I'm like, very encouraging and supportive, you know, and then I couldn't necessarily shake him out of that feeling. There's times when he will start to feel like that if he's at the house or we was at the movies, he will leave. It still didn't make no sense to me. I mean, well, let me say it makes sense. I didn't understand what was going on. And it was when I actually started kind of working more in the mental health field and things like that. It was like an aha moment for me. I'm like, oh, this is what this individual was dealing with and going through. And honestly, I felt a sense of guilt. I felt a sense of guilt because I felt like, man, this is one of my closest friends, if not my closest friend at the time, and I didn't understand what he was going through. And even though he would try to communicate it the best way he know how, I think part of him did not want to use the term depression because stigma.
Yeah.
And but once I, start to understand a little bit more of it, then I was able to get in there and help him with the tools that I had to give to him to deal with depression.
Mm.
So, what are some of the things that or signs and symptoms that you experience when you feel like you're depressed?
Well, it's like you said, there's different levels of depression, I guess. And the problem with depression is it's tricky because inherently, like, it's a feeling that everybody has. It's kind of like natural. It's a
Yes,
natural emotion.
yes,
Um, but the problem with clinical depression is it once it comes and sets in, like, it doesn't go away. And so
yeah,
for me, like, this manifests in, like, I won't get out of bed for
yeah,
multiple days at a time. I won't eat or drink water. Um, like, I'll drink or I'll eat and drink as little as I possibly can, like, just because I don't want to get out of bed. Like, I won't shower for like over
yeah,
a week at a time. I won't brush my teeth. Like,
yeah,
just like, and it sounds crazy, but like, I stopped taking care of myself completely. Like, all these like acts of daily living that we do, like,
yeah,
and just those all go out the window. And like, it's like, it's really hard to pull yourself out of it. And sometimes it can last for months.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
when you have people around you that don't understand the symptoms of depression or don't have a full understanding of mental health or not educated on mental health, stuff like that, sometimes they approach it in a way that is unsupportive, even though they think they're being supportive. But I think sometimes people don't really know, because, folks will say, get up. You've been in your room all day, or you haven't did this or did that. I kind of remember him living at home with his parents, and he has experienced some of that to the point where, you know, um, according to him, to the point where his dad would take his the room door off the hinges because he's sleeping in late and he don't want to get up and his room is messy and stuff like that. I think that they really didn't know how to deal with that and not
Yeah.
realize that there's a bigger issue going on and trying to force him out of that state when sometimes it had to run its course, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And like there's all kinds of things for me personally that can trigger it. It's really circumstantial. And the problem with me also is like since I have like addiction issues too, they like play
Yeah,
into each other and they potentiate each other really badly. And so like
yeah,
even when I was like first like getting sober, I wasn't convinced that like I had depression still.
yeah,
Like I thought it might be like a symptom of the drug use. But
yeah,
then even after like being clean for like 2 years, like I just had these lingering like these bad thoughts that like wouldn't go away. And so now like I'm firm believer in like medication. Like
yeah.
I really believe um like there is like, some kind of chemical imbalances in the brain, and like some of these meds like it might take a while to find the right one, but like there are meds out there that can potentially help people.
I believe that. I believe that. I think in his case, as far as I know, he's never went to get medicated and stuff. I kind of wish he did because he's a very prideful person and just the cultural background he come from. Um he did start to self-medicate to deal with some of the issue that he was having, but as far as going to get some professional help, which I wish he would have, he never did. Um, so um, let me ask you a question. Did or do you have anybody in your family that have a mental health diagnosis or challenges, or are you the only one as far as you
My sister has been diagnosed with like bipolar 2, I think.
Okay.
I don't know much about it. But I do know that it closely over like I've had multiple doctors at one point tell me that I was bipolar.
Okay.
And so like but then like years later they were like, actually we think you're just like borderline personality disorder. But like these things, all these like issues, they all overlap so closely. So
Yeah.
ultimately like it's really hard to tell like
Yeah.
what the issue is. But I know like in her experience, like when they nailed down that diagnosis and started giving her the meds like for that specific condition, like it really helped her.
Right.
um and for me, I'm actually still in the process of like trying different things. Like I found a couple things that really work, but like they're always just tweaking it, like just to see if
Yeah.
it can be better. But it definitely helps. Like it's not like, and because I've self-medicated before, with all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff, that at the end of the day, it's never gonna help, because when like the drugs that you're using wear off, you get like crazy rebound anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
Like it's not fixing any chemical imbalances in your brain, like it's actually making them worse.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah.
What about do you know if your parents or anyone on your parents' side of the family have or experience mental health challenges as well or diagnoses?
um I've heard like some things about my dad's sisters.
Okay.
But the thing is like we're not really that close, because
Okay.
after the my dad's dad died, there was like a huge squabble over the estate and stuff, and so now none of them talk anymore. So like I don't really know, but I've heard like some things maybe. I
Yeah.
definitely have like a couple of cousins with addiction issues as well.
Okay. Yeah.
My sister has her own issues with addiction too. Um, I don't think nobody on my mom's side, because they all live in China and like
Yeah.
just different over there. But yeah, it's just scattered. It's not like a guarantee, but I definitely think there is a slight genetic component to it.
Yeah, I definitely think so because even like in my family, growing up, it was obvious, that like I had cousins, one of my siblings, well, actually two of my siblings, cousins. It was just obvious that it was rampant throughout my family, but we didn't talk about it. People didn't talk about it. It was just one of those things where, oh, you ain't crazy, you need to stop crying. You need to do this and do that. And that's just how we dealt with it. I mean, especially the people that like our sibling, I mean, my mom and our aunties and stuff like uncles, they just dealt with it in a way where they didn't want to deal with it. And I talked to my mom one day about my sister in particular. I think both of her. I want to say my sister and my brother, but I know my sister in particular. And I was asking her, like, why didn't she give my sister any professional help, any help? And her words were, you know, she would have worried about what her friends would say, the family would say, but she knew it. She knew deep down in her heart my sister was different, even to this day, but she never went and got any help because she was more focused on her appearance or worry about what, conversation people had behind closed doors about my sister. And she never did. I have a cousin who actually died. She had gave birth, whatever, and when they delivered her, when they did all these tests, whatever, because her body was shutting down, they found out that she had lupus.
Uh,
And my cousin would never go to the doctor, even she wasn't even going to get prenatal care during her pregnancy. And so when she went and they delivered the baby, and they found out she had lupus, and I don't know how they even let her come home because somehow they let her come home, and she was supposed to, come back. And knowing that she had this diagnosis, she never went back. She never went back, and she ended up dying for lupus shortly after she had her baby. But this was all associated with her mental health diagnosis. To this day, we don't know what she would have been diagnosed with, but if you know I had to take an educated guess, it will be well, I'm not gonna say it, but anyway, if I had to talk to my aunt, and tell her you should have went and got her some professional help because 100% her passing was associated with her not getting the mental health assistance that she needed.
yeah, no, all this mental health awareness and stuff, like this is all fairly new.
Yeah,
um like just recently it kind of became okay to talk about, like
yeah,
it wasn't that long ago they were calling therapists and psychiatrists quacks, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like this is like we're moving in a new direction. It's definitely good, but
yeah,
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I still, like, even in my own personal experience, like I stigmatized taking meds, like for myself. I thought that they would make me weak. Like
yeah,
just having to do that, I was like, that's a crutch. Like that's for weak people. Like
yeah,
this is I can deal with this myself. Like it's all in
yeah,
here. I don't know, but I just like after like years and years of people telling me like just try it.
yeah.
Like I tried it and I just gave it some time, and now like I'm definitely an advocate for at least trying.
Yeah, exactly. I want to talk a little bit about back to borderline personality disorder. And the definition is it's a mental illness characterized by tense and unstable moods, impulsive behaviors, fear of abandonment, inconsistent self image. People with BPD often have addiction issues as depression. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They often have additional issues such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, and drug addiction. And this also reminds me when I was reading this of one of my close friends that I had because was his personality 100%. And once again I didn't understand a lot of that in the beginning, because I when I did find out about the depression was somewhat, I feel, overlapping with this borderline personality disorder. But then I was able to see the distinction between the two at some point because there was times when he uh, wasn't, sad. but then he would be fixated on his self-image, going to the gym, his hair.
Mhm.
It was just always something, and buying all these expensive clothes. And I'm like, dude, like, I mean, his mom told him one day, and this I really got a kick out of this, but he's a very good looking guy, and his mom told him that you would never have to worry about getting a girl as long as you live, because she was talking about his physical image. But that's how much fixated he was on his physical image. And that's when I started to notice the difference between when the depression was uh you know, sticking his neck up, so to speak, and then when the borderline personality disorder. So, talk a little bit about your experience with borderline personality disorder, and what are some of the symptoms you experience?
Well, it like you just said, like that body image thing, I highly relate to that. I've definitely had a healthy bout of body dysmorphia for many years now, for literally no reason. Like
Yeah,
it's I don't know, but I've never actually heard that about borderline before, that the body issues, but the reason the therapist like told me they thought I had it was because of the mostly the feelings of abandonment and the
yeah,
PTSD that I had from my childhood. Like when I was 14, I got like my mom hired like this people to come kidnap me and take me to like a wilderness camp in Montana, and I was
yeah,
there for like four years until I was 18. Um, and so like it took me a long time to get over that. Like even when I came back, I was still pissed. It wasn't until like maybe like in the last like 4 years that I finally was like, okay, I see why you did it. Like it still hurts, but like yeah, that was just really hard. So it makes it like really hard for me to like trust people a lot of the time, and like I'll
yeah,
get close to people. Like what I do is like I'll get close to people, and then like before they can leave me, like I'll cut them off. Like I'll leave
yeah,
them, because then it
yeah,
was my choice. Like I was in control the whole time.
yeah,
Um so that's one way it manifests. Uh and like yeah, the impulsivity, like that I mean, I've had problems with that my whole life, and like especially like intertwined with addiction. Like, one of the things that happens to me is like I'll be doing like really well, and like in my sobriety or like whatever, like my work, like school, and whatever I'm doing, I always do really well, like until I don't. And then it's like I reward myself for doing so good by like taking a drink or using a drug, like, which is just
yeah,
absolutely insane.
yeah,
So those impulsive thoughts, uh those get me a lot. And like in the I have like a lot of like nightmares, I guess. Like I was like physically and sexually abused at the camp in Montana. And
yeah,
so like I carried that with me like for a long time, and I didn't even start talking about that until like 3 years ago. um but just like it wasn't until like I told that full story to like one of my psychiatrists that they were like, okay, like you just checked all the boxes for borderline personality disorder right there. And like honestly, like I still don't really understand the diagnosis as a whole. Like it's kind of a
yeah,
complicated one, especially since I have like so many other underlying issues that are just like mixing with it.
yeah,
But I don't know. There's a really good book uh, that like I tell people to read. It's called "I Hate You, Don't Leave Me." Like,
yeah,
and the and basically that's how it feels like a lot of the time. Like I'll lash out to the people that I love the most for like no reason at all, almost
hmm,
as if like I'm testing them to see
yeah,
if they will leave me, because like I have those feelings of abandonment. I'm like, I want to see if they'll really like stay
yeah,
by me like through all this stuff. So I'll lash out, and then like I'll like it's like a test. Like it's so weird. Like, and I see it like after I do it, but in the moment, like I can't stop myself. It's I don't know. It's super
so
complicated.
So this is so you're lashing out to see if they will leave you. Is this I think I know the answer to this, but I'm asking you this just for clarity. Is this something that's premeditated or is it just in a moment? Or a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both. Like it'll be like there'll be maybe like a sequence of events that happen that lead me to even think like that in the first place. And then once I
Okay.
get in my head, that's and like start exploding at them, that's when it becomes like an automatic thing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know we're gonna do another show because I want you to talk about your experience uh in the camp and we kind of talked about it before. We're gonna do something else on that because that's an interesting situation to me.
Hmm.
And how it happened in the middle of the night, but I'm trying to stay away from that for now. But yeah, I we're gonna talk about that. Well, I will say this about you, David. I do know you. You are extremely, extremely intelligent. Very so. I always tell you that, and I've always
Thanks.
told you that you're very smart. And you're definitely more comfortable with talking about your diagnosis, things you went through, mental health, and things like that. Because when I first met you, you wasn't as open. I mean, you kind of share some things, but I think as time went on, and with anybody that and things like that, you kind of open up and learn more about the person. So me personally, I'm glad that you're sharing this because I do think a lot of people will benefit from hearing your story. You're young, you're intelligent, your life is thriving, and so I hope that the folks that hear this really can benefit and get something from this. um I want to talk a little bit about anxiety, and then I'm trying to build up on some. Anxiety says feelings of unease or nervousness, uncontrollable and irritable worrying. Signs of anxiety is like heavy breathing, dry mouth, shaking, weakness or fatigue, a person heart beating fast, feeling like something bad is going to happen all the time. Tell me a little bit about your experience with anxiety.
Well, it can manifest in a lot of different ways, like kind of how you were just saying, like they can be physical manifestations or mental manifestations.
Yeah,
And that's really depending on the severity and the situation. But
yeah,
for me, like the first thing that I always notice usually is like I'll just start shaking and I can feel my heart beating really fast. Like it feels like there's like a pit in my stomach or
yeah,
like butterflies or something, like something's there. Um, and it definitely activates like the fight or flight response
yes,
right away. That's
mhm,
what I always notice. Um, and so like depending on how bad it is, like that combined with like the impulsivity and
yeah,
everything, it can lead me to make like rash decisions. um or just like I'm really good at just like throwing away my whole life for no reason.
yeah,
It just it causes me the anxiety causes me to act irrationally. Like I can't see the bigger picture. Like all I
uh-huh,
want to do in that moment is just change how I feel because like
yeah,
the feeling is like so intense. Yeah. And it's like the things that I used to do, obviously, would I would like self medicate and stuff. But like, I mean, now I really like I'm a firm believer in the like controlled breathing practices.
yeah,
Like just forcing yourself to breathe at like a certain tempo. It really helps bring your heart rate down. And like if you can like help with some of those like physical symptoms, like the mental ones will ease like afterwards.
yeah,
But it's a process, and like and it took a long time to I guess be able to identify um in the moment like what I need to do instead of just like succumbing to like my impulsive or intrusive thoughts and
yeah.
running, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's important too. And I want to speak on my friend again because I mean, Man, like it's just we have such a long stretch in our friendship, I mean, being friends for a long time. And once again, a lot of these things that he was dealing with, um, I just I wish I would have been better prepared, is what I'm saying. Because he dealt with a lot. I mean, a lot. And, come from a good family, just a very loving and close knit family. And, but some of the things he was dealing with, I don't think none of us was kind of prepared for, to be honest with you. And there were times things would happen and he would just have this just feeling the hopelessness. No matter what you said or what you did, he was fixated on, nope, this is bad, this is how it is, and this is how it's going to be. And he could not see anything else outside of that situation that would have brought him hope. And honestly, over time, for me, being the closest person to him, it started to wear on me. It was very draining to the point where, I didn't want to, be around him. I didn't want to accept the phone calls or the text message. I did because, okay, I'm like, this is my friend, but I got to a point where I had to kind of mentally shut him out when he got to that state because it would start affecting me. Because I'm like, what can I do? I'm doing everything I know how to do. And I realized it just has to take its course. So he started self-medicating with certain things to kind of help him with that feeling. But it was a lot. It was a lot. With that. You said something interesting earlier in this interview. You talked about how with depression, everyone feels a sense of sadness at some point in their life because it's being a human. Things are going to
Mhm.
happen in your life that are going to bring some of these diagnoses that we're talking about. If, for example, if somebody goes to the hospital and they get a diagnosis, a physical diagnosis, they're going to be anxious, they're going to be nervous, they're going to be experiencing anxiety, they may start feeling depression. So some of these things are not necessarily a diagnosis, but it's what you experience as being human beings as you walk this journey of life. Do you agree
Mhm.
with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. And how do people tell the difference between the two when it's just something that's not ongoing or when it's just something that you just kind of, you know, experience because this is a life journey?
Well, it's kind of like you just said, like if there's a reason for it, like,
Yeah.
and you're able to identify that reason, like that's totally natural. Like if I went to the doctor and they diagnosed me with cancer, like I would definitely be depressed about it and probably not for a short time either, like for a while.
Yeah.
These things, like, it just, it takes a while for your brain to just, I guess, like become okay with like whatever you're dealing with. But the difference with like clinical depression is, there usually won't be a reason. Like
Right.
you'll just wake up
Right.
and you just won't want to get out of bed, and
Hmm.
there's nothing that happened. Like it's just an overwhelming sense of hopelessness,
Yeah.
and like there's no meaning to life whatsoever. And and that's the problem with that too, is since there's no reason, like that's why it becomes like really hard to talk about. Because like
Yeah.
if you have a reason, like, oh, I'm sad because of XYZ, like people understand that. But like if you just come, like, this is why I wouldn't talk about it. Like if I just come to my partner or my parents or something and like, oh, I'm sad again, they're like, why are you sad? Like, I don't know.
Hmm.
That's really hard, like, and especially
Yeah.
to do that over and over and over,
Right.
like you feel like weak,
Hmm.
like there's something wrong with you. There is that stigma, like, and it's just really hard to get over.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And I think, finding that person that you can trust and that you can support because it is a very delicate and touchy situation when you're in that state, especially for when you're around people who don't really understand, like you just said, people saying, well, why are you feeling like this? Or what's going on? Whatever. Like a lot of people, they just don't understand and they care not to understand. And that's okay. But I feel like for those who go through those situations, need to have somebody who has a level of compassion and empathy and background on what this mental health is about. Somebody just wants to be supportive, and it's not just one person. Sometimes it take more than one because it's hard when you just got one person. You
Yeah.
know, if you're just going to that one person, imagine just all this stuff being dumped on them, especially they truly, truly, truly love and care about you.
Yeah. You feel like a burden.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not that you are the person is a burden. I know me and my friend, I just needed um somebody else to come in and share this with. Meaning somebody else, he can go to this person one day, come in the next day, like you know, because it's a lot on one person. It's like kind of somebody being a single parent. You know, you got these kids you're dealing with, you just there, you cooking, you clean, you're going to work, and not that partner, you know, your spouse to share that responsibility with. You know, it's a lot. But I've learned a lot through the years. I've learned to know how to take care of myself in those situations because man, it was a lot.
Hmm.
It was a lot, and I was just the only one in it until the end. He started opening up to his family and stuff. But yeah, yeah, it was a lot. Um, so how did you having these diagnoses affect your relationships with your friends or your girlfriends in the past or currently? How did that affect them?
Well, like I was just saying, it becomes hard to constantly go to them and say that you're having like these bad thoughts and you can't explain why. Like you do truly feel like a burden. Um, and so like at first, like I would try to share more, and like that's what they wanted me to do. You know, they thought
Yeah,
that they could help me, but like eventually, like I said, I felt like it was doing more harm than good. So I
right.
started closing off actually,
Yeah,
um, because I didn't want to put that all on them. Like I felt bad. Like they don't. I mean, they don't really deserve that, I guess.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I guess in the end, it made me just more closed off. Um, but that did help me, like, I guess, find something instead that would work better. Like, I don't know why, but for some reason, like sharing these things at like a group level, like really helps. Like getting it out of your head and like into the world or whatever. Like it takes some of the power out of it. So for a while there, I was going to like um these groups at Kaiser. I was going to uh DDIOP, which is dual diagnosis intensive outpatient disorder. So
yeah,
we would talk a lot about the depression, anxiety, and all of us there also had like addiction issues. So like finding that support group um, is really helpful, and you know they don't just have them for like drugs and alcohol, like they have them for literally everything.
yeah,
So and that really helps take the burden off of your loved ones, and at the same time it shows them that you're trying to do something about it, you know.
yeah,
um, so that I would say helped a lot with my relationships in the past and with my parents.
yeah. You have so much to share, man. You have, I mean, we ain't even scratching the surface. You have a lot to share that I feel people would really benefit from. And this is part of the reason I'm glad you got to a place you that you're comfortable sharing your story because like for me, I do these shows and all of that, but I've always felt more comfortable. This just me, in my opinion, doing a show with people that are very organic. Like I did shows with people, you know, for certain. nonprofit organization who's providing services and blah 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 blah, and that's great work and it's good, and I, commend that. But for people who come on and share their personal story, like you, this is real life. This is what goes on. Like this is what a lot of these youth are dealing with. A lot of people on social media are dealing with. Like this is a part of life journey, whether it be you know your journey or somebody else's journey. This is what goes on, and I feel like it's not a color issue, it's not a gender issue, it's not a race issue. These things happen across the board. And I am glad that now folks are starting to chip away at the stigma with mental health. Because at one point in time, obviously, it was like taboo. It was, folks didn't want to talk about, or if they had a family member or a son or daughter, what goes on in his house stays in his house. And when there's an enormous amount of resources out here that can contribute to their, them living in a better place. Because sometimes our circle of support, if they don't have the background or the understanding of how this thing works, their support can only go so far. It's limited. They don't have the knowledge and the resources or places to call to get you help. I mean, individual help and stuff like that. I do want to talk a little bit about how, so when I asked you earlier about how your diagnoses or a diagnosis can affect relationships, does these things cause a form of codependent in relationships?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've seen it firsthand. Uh, and it's really hard when, like, especially if you're in like an intimate relationship with someone, and
Yeah,
like, then even if you don't mean to, a lot of the times, like, the way that one person is feeling will have a direct impact on the other. So like if one
yeah,
person is sad, like they'll both be sad. And so if one person is depressed, like they'll, it's really, yeah, it's definitely 100% intertwined. And with my mom too, like like there were many years, like, would go by, like, and we wouldn't talk, and like she would just text me every night at like 2 a.m., like, oh, I can't sleep, I'm thinking about you, and all this stuff. So like, yeah, it's really hard. Like I've seen it firsthand, and I mean, honestly, like, I don't even know what there is to do about that. Like,
yeah,
to be real, like, I mean, depending on like the type of relationship, there's always that point where, if it's causing more harm than good, or, you can step away. But like you said with your friend, like, it's a really hard thing to do, because ultimately, like, you care about them from the bottom of your heart.
yeah,
And like that line, I don't know, that line gets blurred. Like, you don't really know when you should step away. And
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's just, and like you were saying, I feel like it's really important, that people hear this from somebody like me, as opposed to like a clinical
yes,
perspective. Like, I think it helps just as much, if not more, because that's one of the things that I just always felt alone,
yeah,
and that nobody could relate. So I just hope that, like, somebody so somebody hears this and knows that they're not alone. Yeah, and
right.
there's resources out there for people.
Yes, absolutely. I want you to go in depth, but man, because there's so much we can talk about. 'Cause I know a little bit about your story, little bit more about your story, but I want you to talk about when I said codependent. Could you share the story with me one day? Let me know if you're comfortable talking about this or not. But you kind of share the story with me about when you break up with your partner. How?
Oh,
Yeah,
like
share that.
how, like, all leave before they can leave me.
Yeah, but you share like it's like a death to you when y'all break up.
Well, I mean, I put like a lot of my self-worth into like how much other people like me. Like,
Yeah.
So like that's the like when I get left or like abandoned like that, I feel like my life is worth nothing.
Okay.
So I literally like would rather be dead almost.
Okay. Yeah. That when you say I've never well I guess when you said that to me, I don't think nobody ever put it to me that blunt, or I never thought about it in that manner, if that makes sense. So when you said that to me, it was just like, oh, okay. And then as
Yeah.
I began to think a little bit more on it, I'm like, that's actually natural if you're really intertwined with somebody. Like I was talking with the texting a friend yesterday that I've known for a while, and this individual is in the process for divorce. Now, I can read through the text message and know something is going on because I know it's individual. So after maybe about 8 texts, I just finally just came out and asked, "Are you and your husband okay?" And she said, "No, I'm going on the divorce paper right now as we speak, as I'm texting you." So I was able to pick up on that. So of course now I'm starting to, trying to, comfort her in whatever way I can, blah 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 blah. But I could just tell that that was something very detrimental to her mental health. Trust me,
Oh yeah.
just by the text message and stuff. So people don't are not that blunt to say it the way you said it, but in reality, it is true. It is.
Yeah, but I feel like I mean, I it is true for everybody, but like for me, like as a addict, alcoholic with mental health issues, like I have really low self-worth as it is. So like I said, I place all my stock in like these other people and how much they like me. Literally all of my eggs in that basket. And then when they leave, I have nothing left. Like, cause I
Yeah.
already hate myself to begin with. So it's super hard.
So,
But like I'm getting better at that. So
okay, that's about that. Do you feel like
yeah.
you're growing in these areas, or it's just kind of like, eh?
No, it's definitely something that like it's something I've struggled with my whole life, but like especially over these last like 2 years I've learned to love myself a lot more.
Yeah,
Um
yeah,
but yeah, I feel like everybody struggles with that to a certain extent.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Um, so give me, I mean, we're running out of time. So I want to, before we close, I think we got like 2 or 3 minutes, probably three. Tell me, can you just give some advice to somebody who may be struggling with, mental health challenges, or like, what advice would you give them, if they were just scared because they don't want people to think they're crazy, or they don't want to, be looked at as weird? Like, what advice would you give them to get them the help that they need?
Well, I would say that it's a normal thing. Like everybody struggles with something like to a certain extent, just some more than others. But the most important thing to do is to reach out and ask for help and not necessarily to like your partner or like your parents or something. Like I would highly suggest like if you can I guess trying therapy and like just trying to get plugged into like in and just people issues going on, something that you guys can talk about and relate to because like when you're able to relate to another person on these struggles, like that's when the true healing begins because then you
Yeah.
don't feel so alone.
Okay. And what about, how important is it to get the right type of assistance?
I'd say super important. I it's but the thing is there's all kinds of different things out there. I would definitely suggest trying medication, like talking to like healthcare professionals and going to these support groups. Those are the two things that help me the most.
Yeah.
Um but just I mean there's like I think there's even like hotlines you can call uh like to get plugged into any resources in your area or just like a quick Google search, or like if you're an addict or an alcoholic, like going to like the meetings helps like a lot, like for me.
Yeah,
So it just depends on what your issues are.
yeah. All right, David. Once again, I want to thank you so much for just sharing your experience. And like I said earlier in the interview, I know, those who watch this, they will, get something out of this. Because like I said, this is not something that is not going on an everyday basis. No matter how rich, how poor, what color, class, economic background, these are things that people are dealing with. So I feel like your story is going to help a lot of people. Before we go, I was out the other day, and which this was really funny. But anyway, I was out the other day at a restaurant, and this guy walked up to me. He was with his wife, and he said to me, he's like, "Oh, oh, I saw you on TV and you taught mental health." And he said, "I watched the whole thing. I watched the whole thing." And he was so excited. And I'm just like, "Oh, okay." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah." And so that made me feel good because he was saying that I was doing good work. So that made me feel really, 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 really good.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and that's why I'm always willing to do this kind of stuff, because I you never know what little thing you say will have an impact on someone else's life.
Yeah. So I'm saying all that to say, um, thank you. Thank you for sharing it. And we're gonna do a few more together if you have the time because like I said, you got a lot to share and a lot that's gonna impact people's lives. So that's it for this edition of Mental Health Matters. If you would like to be a guest on our show, or if you would like a DVD copy of our show, or if you would like a copy of this particular interview, please dial 916-366-4600. Thank you.